Season 4 of rapidly decaying Gen X touchstone Sex and the City really does have something for everyone. For example, this episode sees Carrie Bradshaw doing a Gemma Collins in front of Heidi Klum. Watch your step, like and subscribe, and let's get into it. While enjoying Naughty's New York's latest, dullest looking hangout, Carrie is propositioned by in-demand fashion show producer Lynn, played by Margaret Cho. On a day she was apparently acting not just for the back row, but people in an underground bunker 2 states away. She insists that Carrie models at her upcoming show, which features New Yorkers with notable style. At which time, I would like to point out that, like many words, notable has positive connotations until it's said with sarcasm. Guess which version I think is being deployed here. Carrie herself isn't sold all the way on this idea, but the other ladies are naturally all very encouraging. With the notable, see, there it is again, exception of Miranda, who offers an admirably honest response, which stops just short of calling Carrie a moose. After learning that she'll be walking with Heidi Klum, Carrie fatefully requests the highest heels available, which we are reminded of at least 3 times because the writers can't remember what happened 10 minutes ago and don't think you can either. On the day of the show, Carrie's outfit is unceremoniously switched out for nude, sparkly panties and an open coat. By the time she's had 5 bags of weave, backcombed into an impromptu facelift, and enough eyeshadow to move her up a weight class, the stage is set for one of the show's most notorious scenes. Surprisingly, the show starts off smoothly, if you can consider any fashion show where former New York Mayor Ed Koch goes second to be going smoothly. And it's mere moments later when, to the strains of Got to Be Real, Carrie gets real acquainted with the floor as she eats total shit. Heidi Klum follows, gracefully stepping over Carrie's upended arse and presumably resisting the urge to put a stiletto through her face only because of her lack of perceived threat. Despite her eventual, decent recovery, what's baffling is how long Carrie stays down before getting up. 32 seconds, by my count. But then again, it's not like her lack of self-preservation is new to the channel. By my estimation, it's bad enough by now that she could find a way to drown in the shower. Samantha's on a health kick this week, namely the Naughty's obsession with eating organic, which didn't save the planet, but did allow supermarkets to charge you twice as much for what you were already buying. Fight me. She truly has suffered for the cause, mind, having had such a craving for a Big Mac that she had to go pick up a guy to scratch the itch. To which I say, why not live your best life and have both? The cleft of an ass makes an excellent ketchup holder. The cause in question turns out to be an upcoming nude photo shoot, scheduled to immortalize her body in its current state before everything inevitably heads for the southern border. It's fairly clear, to me at least, that the studio she hires is more accustomed to tasteful implied nudes, as evidenced by their horror when she gives the whole room a view so far up Satan's pantry that a gyno in the next building could perform an exam. Except it transpires that this isn't entirely about Sam celebrating her own body. It is also about getting a satisfactory reaction out of somebody, and later, more desperately, anybody. The other ladies and an unassuming framer all get caught in the crossfire, as she whips the photos out at every opportunity with all the misplaced gusto of a Tinder match who thinks that a grainy, unsolicited shot of his blood blunt is an appropriate stand-in for hello. It's not until the framed portrait is positioned literally right by the door of her apartment that she eventually gets an acceptable compliment from a delivery guy. I assume after vigorous cocking of her eyes and gesturing to it for every caller before that only resulted in an APB and being put on a register. Miranda's storyline this week begins at the gym, where she's listening to She Bangs by Ricky Martin. In yet another moment which would have been superb foreshadowing if the writers had had any intention of making her anything other than straight back then. Which I can say with some confidence, considering that she's prevented from living La Vida Lesbiana by the interruption of hot gym guy Dave. When she fails to even consider that he might be hitting on her, Dave firmly timestamps the show by admitting to watching Miss Hobbs for a while, which nobody seems to identify as the creepy precursor to a first date murder that it almost certainly would be in real life. Maybe hoping to murder him first, I guess, she agrees to go out with him despite her initial belief that nobody could ever see her as sexy. Unfortunately for all of us, this disappears by date 2, and in its place we get Sexy Miranda. An apparently suppressed personality who exclusively speaks in expository non sequiturs like a Broadway character who just burst from backstage.
Dear L, he's a lucky guy, I'm like gonna cry.
Which appears to be her impression of Samantha. Ouch. Dave's abrupt disinterest in his date puzzles Miranda, who thought she was just giving him what he wanted. Turns out, Dave likes his sexy with a side of meek, and found sexy Miranda and the demon possessing her to be a little too full of themselves. And that's the whole storyline. This week's writing budget apparently got blown on Ed Koch's appearance fee. Charlotte's on the hunt for a new gynecologist this week, dissatisfied with the current job holder's refusal to agree that her hairy donut is carrying an above-average payload of yeast. Carrie's recommendation doesn't agree either, instead offering to treat Charlotte's puddy tat for depression. Medically, she's given antidepressants and instructed to keep a journal about the chronic day-to-day malaise in her mingus. That aside, the revelation that she's never taken a close look at her own nooks and crannies leads the ladies to insist that she acquaint herself ASAP, particularly in light of her assessment that it wouldn't exactly win Best in Show.
It looks like grandma, the f***ing thing!
And despite her in-person refusals, Mrs. McDougal does do the inevitable.
That's amazing, Jeremy, but I'm gonna go home now and look at my vagina with a hand mirror.
Of course, we never see what she sees when she goes spelunking, so if you can interpret what the hell this face means, do let me know. Surprise? Terror? Light arousal? All three? Who knows? Stanford is a little down on himself this week, by which I mean insecure, and not that he's discovered a newfound flexibility. Carrie encourages him to believe in himself more, mostly by hitting on a nearby Gucci model. And as he correctly identifies, this is not the kind of guy Stanford should be hitting on. No, this is the kind of guy who shares a hive mind with his incestuous four-man social clique, who call themselves the Heathers but would suffer twink death before being able to tell you which movie that's a reference to. Charlotte is employed to find Stanny a suitable date, sending her racing to a Rolodex which I'd guess is labelled single gay men who were struck by lightning while watching The Addams Family. Charlotte flipping through the thing as if it's absolutely crammed with eligible gay bachelors is a fantastic, unintentional visual gag, because the punchline is her calling literally the only other gay man she knows, Anthony Marantino. Charlotte immediately leads him astray by claiming that Stanford looks like a young Ed Harris, which is along the same lines as being promised Wagyu steak but being served Cargill turkey. Their blind date is scheduled for the day of Carrie's fashion show, where Stanford has the audacity to ask if he looks alright while wearing full-body Rupert the Bear cosplay. Anthony's visible fury at being matched with Mr. Magoo's theatrical twin is admittedly a bit much, but he does at least home in on Charlotte's ignorant belief that any two random gay men must be a perfect match. Mind you, it's not like Stanford was exactly taken with Anthony either, labelling him a queen accurately but without irony. While dressed, I must remind you, like Ronald McDonald on his way to a court appearance. Anthony ultimately dips out for what Charlotte calls a decorating emergency, which I can only assume means that he had a backup plan in place and is off somewhere being splattered like a painter's radio. Before you go, last week's top comment came courtesy of Galway Shade, who considered the merits of defrocking both priests and nuns. Climb every mountain and all that. This time, answer me this. Have you ever been set up on a blind date with someone under false pretenses? And what happened next? Answers in the comments below, please. Either way, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as ever, if you can't be good, be crusty.